Good evening, everybody. I welcome you all to today's session. And in today's class, we will be covering the important national events that have happened, the awards for the month of October, and also things related to defense, simply the Saksham initiative of the army, which is an anti-drone initiative. And also, we will be discussing the 3-4 military exercises that took place in the month of October. All right. So this is what is the agenda for today. Beginning with the first national news for October, it is India and European Free Trade Agreement. All right. Okay. Now, India and EFTA, European Free Trade Association's Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement. All right. Okay. Now, there are certain things that you need to keep in mind with this particular agreement, in the sense that what are the EFTA countries, what is EFTA, and what are the basic agendas that they have actually signed, and what is the entire aim and objective of this particular agreement. All right. So, firstly, the name itself becomes important. India European Free Trade Association. This particular Trade and Economic Partnership or TEPA agreement is only between 4 countries which form a part of the European Free Trade Association. All right. So there are 4 nations in EFTA, which is European Free Trade Association: Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Switzerland. All right. These are the 4 countries with whom this particular agreement has been undertaken. Now, when we talk about EFTA, so EFTA was established in the year 1916. It has its headquarters in Brussels and in Geneva. It has its headquarters in Geneva, not Brussels. And other than that, it has 3 secretarial offices also. So one of them is in Brussels, one of them is in Luxembourg, one of them is in Geneva. So it has 3 secretariat offices, 1 headquarters. Initially, it was founded or established by 7 countries. Initially, there were 7 countries who had undertaken the inception of EFTA, and there were countries like, United Kingdom, countries like France, Germany, etc., which eventually left EFTA. And as of now, today, we have these 4 countries who are part of Economic Free Trade Association. All right. Okay. So what you have to keep in mind that this particular agreement was signed last year on 10th of March 2024, and it has been implemented this year on 1st of October 2025. Now, why does this become important or basically significant? Is because of this one country, Switzerland. All right. Now, with Switzerland, we already had one double tax avoidance agreement. All right. We had a 30-year double tax avoidance agreement, which was signed in 1994. It was signed in 1994, and 30 years, so naturally, it was supposed to expire or come to an end in 2024, and it did come to an end on 31st of December 2024. Now, why am I taking up this double tax avoidance agreement with Switzerland is that under this double tax avoidance agreement, it actually became a bone of contention between Indian and Switzerland trade. All right. So, Switzerland, under the double tax avoidance agreement, had given the most favored nation status to India, which was automatically conferred to any country with which Switzerland would take a double tax avoidance agreement. All right. But this is not the case with India. In case of India, we do not automatically confer a most favored nation status. We confer this status otherwise under the Income Tax Act of 1961. All right. So this was a case that was was supposedly submitted to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court had given a say on this in 2023, and the case was also known as the Nestle case. And in the case, the Supreme Court had clarified that in India, we do not automatically confer most favored nation status to countries with whom we sign double tax avoidance agreements. All right. So we have to otherwise confer it under Income Tax Act 1961. All right. So Switzerland obviously did not like this, and Switzerland said that it is not going to renew this double tax avoidance agreement with India, and the agreement came to an end on 31st of December 2024. It did not renew on the 1st of January 2025. But in spite of that, we have this trade and economic partnership agreement with EFTA, of which Switzerland is a part. All right. So keep these facts a little bit in mind. Another thing, that it was signed last year, it has been implemented, put in force on 1st of October. All right. What does it say? It offers binding commitment of 100 billion investment and 1 million direct jobs in the next 15 years. All right. So what you have to remember it, that it is a binding commitment. It calls for an investment of $100 billion and creation of 1 million direct jobs. Also, a time period of 15 years. All right. So from 2025 till 2040. All right. Okay. And amongst all of these, Switzerland is India's largest trading partner, followed by Norway. Another thing, that it is the first free trade agreement signed by India to incorporate a binding commitment. All right, binding commitment specifically to investment and job creation. So this makes this particular agreement special. All right, so keep this in mind. And obviously, this has been undertaken to give a major boost to India's Make in India, Atmanirbhar Bharat India. All right. We also had a dedicated India FTA desk, which has been operational since 2025. So this has been established this year only, and a desk in the sense like one single window portal sort of thing, where you can get everything done under one roof. All right. Okay. Then talking about the key features, it gives market access to goods. EFTA offers a substantial access covering 100% of non-agricultural products. India protects sensitive sectors including dairy, soya, coal, pharma, medical devices, etc. Services and mobility, exports in IT, business services, and education. All right. You need to remember 100% coverage of non-agricultural products. All right. Why non-agricultural specifically mentioned? Because there are certain agricultural products that India has kept outside its ambit. All right. So that our Indian needs are met first. All right. Okay. Chemicals and allied products, you need to remember that 95%, all right, that zero tariffs or reduced tariffs are offered on 95% of India's exports to these EFTA countries, and India has granted market access to nearly 80% of its tariff lines, covering 95% of EFTA's exports. So 100% is for non-agricultural products, and 95% products will be sent or traded basically on zero tariffs or extremely reduced tariffs. All right. Then intellectual property rights also have been given due consideration in this particular agreement. And also Indian exports gain significantly. The Indian exports have significantly had an upper hand under the EFTA TEPA agreements, specifically in engineering goods, processed foods, etc. All right. One more thing with respect to this, do keep in mind the Trump tariffs also, that tariffs have as of now been put on India equivalent to 50%. Also keep in mind the H-1B visa that we did the last month, that becomes important. All right. You may get a full-fledged interrelated question now. All right. Okay. Then coming to...
So I just want to add one bit here, that because of two countries, this ma'am mentioned about Nestle coming in, because primarily of Nestle, this Switzerland, the concession rate that was being offered, right? And it was basically that two countries joined the OECD, right? And so this group becomes important. Two countries joined OECD. There are 38 countries as of now in OECD. And OECD was set up in the year 1961 with the headquarters in Paris. And these countries are Colombia and Lithuania. Okay. Now, once these countries joined the OECD, they were given a concession rate of 5%. And that's the reason, that was a main issue between, giving an MFN status to Switzerland, and then these countries getting a much better rate of 5% to Lithuania and Colombia, right? So that's the reason, Switzerland decided to, roll back to its previous rate of 10%, Colombia's capital is Bogota. Lithuania's capital is Vilnius. Colombia has also joined. Is going to be joining the Security Council.
And also the Belt and Road Initiative.
Security Council is going to be joining. Okay, and Lithuania, is one of the Eastern European countries.
What?
Why do you keep smiling when I talk about capitals? You don't like capitals.
You should ask them if they like capitals.
Yeah.
Okay, now coming to the Sir Creek issue. Now this was in news and it is not a new border dispute between India. The border dispute can be traced back till 1914. But it is post-independence that it flared up mostly because obviously we partitioned the country. All right. Okay. So this particular Sir Creek issue. Now before we get into the entire issue, there are certain terms which might be new. One is a creek, one is an estuary. All right. Yes. Okay. So a creek is basically an inlet of the sea inside the land. All right. So as you can see in this map, you have the Arabian Sea here, and the Arabian Sea waters can have found their inlets till here. All right. So this is a creek. An estuary is also similar to this only, but an estuary is mostly formed or established at the mouth of a river. Mouth of a river meaning when a river joins the sea. So whenever a river joins, every river drains into a sea or a major larger water body. Whenever these rivers are draining into a sea, they form two landforms. One is a delta, one is an estuary. So delta is a more fertile one where the river has carried significant amount of sediments and then formed this. Estuaries are just mouth of the delta, where mouth of the rivers where significant amount of sedimentation has not occurred. All right. So generally on the western coast of India, we have estuaries which are formed. All right. So this particular name here, Sir Creek. Okay, now this region here is actually a delta region of the Indus River. All right. Now Indus River, you all know, it is a transboundary river, originates in Tibet and then moves across Jammu and Kashmir into Pakistan and then drains into the Arabian Sea. So when it is draining in the Arabian Sea, it forms a delta. So this entire region is the deltaic region of the Indus River. All right. Okay, now what happened here? Now because it is a deltaic region, naturally the mud is particularly not very, very still, keeps on shifting, keeps on moving. So a clear demarcation of line is very difficult. All right. Now when we gained independence, after independence, India and Pakistan began its entire full-fledged war, जो अभी तक चलती चली आ रही है. So there were disputed areas. One is the Pakistan region only, the Kashmir region, POK, and then this also forms one region, one disputed area. Now, what is the dispute here? The dispute here being that if you all can see this green line, you all can see this green line here. All right, and you can see this red line here. All right, now there is a law under international marine boundary demarcation laws, which is known as the Thalweg rule. All right, now the Thalweg rule says that in case there is a navigable body, the whatever marine body that forms a boundary between two particular countries or regions, etc. In case that water body is a navigable body. Navigable meaning that it can facilitate movement of ships, maybe even small boats, etc. In case it is a navigable body, then always the midpoint from those two regions will be considered as the boundary line between two countries. All right. Now, for example, this is the entire Sir Creek. All right, and under the Thalweg rule, it will say that this red line is seen to be the center or the middle line between Pakistan and India. So as per the Thalweg rule, this red line will be the international boundary separating India and Pakistan. But what Pakistan says is that this red line is not the separation or the international boundary between India and Pakistan. The green line is the international boundary between India and Pakistan. All right. So meaning that Pakistan simply says that India has no claim in the Sir Creek region. Pakistan has this entire region to itself. So recently, what was seen that Pakistan was undertaking significant military deployments in the Sir Creek region. So we issued a stern warning against these deployments and said that India would obviously not sit quiet if such things are done, and they must respect the Halweg rule, which calls for equal division of the creek between the two countries. All right. So this is the entire Sir Creek.
Just one fact here that so Sir Creek के पहले इसका नाम था Banganga. Remember this? And this name was changed in the year 1908 to Sir Creek when there was this dispute between Kutch ruler and the Sindh.
All right, and the Sir Creek name is also behind this British person only who had come to basically demarcate this entire region. All right, so Banganga is actually a tributary of the Indus River, and I told you that this entire region is a Indus Delta. So that particular tributary, which actually flows through Jammu and Kashmir, finally comes and drains here. तो वही चीज यहाँ तक extend करके इसको बाणगंगा बोलते थे, but then the name was changed to Sir. All right, so now we quickly look into some facts. So Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, he recently issued a stern warning because of these military deployments that Pakistan was making in this region. Now what is it? It is a fluctuating 96-kilometer tidal estuary. Now whenever there is a water body involved, the boundary will never be very stable, all right? The same issue we face with Nepal also in the Lipu Lake, Limpi, Adura, Kalapani region, because the Kali River was called for as the boundary line between India and Nepal in the western end, all right? So naturally the river keeps on changing its course, which becomes difficult for us to have a stable, still border. The same thing was happening here also because it is a water body, keeps on changing its course, all right? The Sir Creek is a fluctuating, you need to remember, 96-kilometer tidal estuary. Estuary क्यों है? Because it is the end point of the Indus River, where the river is meeting the sea, all right? Estuary meandering through marshy expanse of Run of Kutch in Gujarat. Meandering meaning moving this way, all right? Meandering through Run of Kutch in Gujarat. It marks the natural boundary between India's Kutch district, Gujarat, and Pakistan's Sindh province before flowing into the Arabian Sea. You need to remember these 3 regions which are included in it. So India's Kutch district is included, which is a part of Gujarat, Pakistan Sindh province, and also the Arabian Sea. Now this Kutch district or the Run of Kutch again is important. Is related to the biosphere reserves in India, largest biosphere reserve of India. All right. Originally, Sir Creek was called the Banganga. All right. It was renamed Sir Creek in 1908. All right.
There's a question started by Raman Gover. He said, why are rivers simply taken as demarcation lines?
Because they're fairly easy, that they are already found on the Earth's surface. They have a natural cause that they have been flowing through many years. So the people in general, they do not want to demarcate a new one, and they generally call that this particular river forms the boundary line between the two countries. There are a lot of rivers that are considered as international boundary lines. Britishers did this here. Even in US, if you look at, so there is this one river, St. Lawrence River, which forms one of the international boundaries between US and Canada. So they use this because they're already present there as natural features.
Yeah, and that's a challenge. He's saying that the coast keeps changing, and that's why it becomes a water dispute. Like India has a water dispute with Nepal with respect to the Kali River source, okay, Lipu Lake and Limpiapura. And similarly, the Susta River has changed its course and more territory has come into India in Nepal. So yeah, that's also a reason for conflict.
Okay. All right. Then, Sir Creek, the entire issue dates back to 1914. So it was in 1914 when this basic demarcation agreement was undertaken. Then it was undertaken between the ruler of Kutch. Back then, Bombay, that entire province, was included together, was a large province which included Gujarat, present Maharashtra, and also certain parts of Karnataka. And even after independence, till 13 years, the entire Bombay state remained this way only. It was in 1960 that Bombay was bifurcated into present-day Gujarat and Maharashtra. All right. So then the ruler of Kutch, who was under the Bombay presidency, by presidency क्योंकि half of Bombay was under Britishers और वो मुंबई जो था वो Britishers का ही था. It was given as dowry because the prince had the king of England had married Portugal princess Catherine, so it was given as a dowry. And the Sindh government and the British India, all right? So it was a Kutch ruler and the then Sindh government, all right? India's claim, India considers the 1914 Bombay government resolution demarcation as only a guideline, meaning not legally binding, citing the internationally accepted हालवेग प्रिंसिपल क्या कहता है कि अगर दो लैंड बॉडीज हैं और उसके बीच में कोई भी वाटर बॉडी है, always the center point between the two regions will be considered as the demarcation of international boundary between the two countries. ठीक है, तो इंडिया क्या कहता है कि ये हालवेग रूल को मानना जाना चाहिए. For example, here in this map, the red line. This is as per the Thalweg rule. India says कि ये red line को हम international boundary मानेंगे. Pakistan does not consider this और कहता है ये green line हमारी international boundary which directly has a border with India. Okay? Alright. Thalweg principle which sets the creek's mid-channel as the boundary since it is navigable most of the year and insists on a bilateral settlement under the 1972 Shimla Agreement. So again, two things you have to keep in mind. 1914, which was the agreement between the ruler of Kutch and the ruler of Sindh under the Britishers, and the 1972 agreement, Shimla Agreement, and the Thalweg Principle. Why does India call for the Thalweg Principle? Because it is an internationally recognized principle for demarcation of navigable waters as international territories or international boundaries, and the 1972 Shimla Agreement. Why? Because this was the first agreement between India and Pakistan where they specifically called for peaceful settlement of bilateral issues. All right. So that is why the two of them are important. All right. I hope that the 1972 Shimla Agreement is on your fingertips by now. All right. It is important. All right. We did it after the Pahalgam terror attack also. Pakistan says the entire Creek, citing a 1914 Bombay government resolution, boundary along the eastern bank, the so-called Green Line, effectively placing the creek in Sindh. All right. And it says that Thalweg principle does not apply because it is not navigable. India is saying that this creek is navigable. That is why it applies to it, and navigable for most part of the years. And Pakistan is saying that it is not navigable. That is why it can't be applied. All right. Okay. Then coming to the next topic, which is this. Now, why this particular topic is important? Because everybody is going for law, and a lot of you might even aim to become a judge eventually. So it's a relief now that we've gotten this new judgment, and under this judgment what the government is actually saying is that previously to be appointed as a district judge, all right, to be appointed as a district judge you had to have a 7-year experience as a practicing advocate. All right, a practicing advocate in a high court or a district court, etc. You had to have a 7-year experience, and then you could sit for the PCSJ exam, which recruits you to the judge level. All right, and other than that, either you have a 7-year separate one, and your experience as judicial officers would not be counted. All right. Under Article 233, there are 3 qualifications. One of the qualifications says 3 qualifications to be appointed as a district judge. So one of the qualifications says that in case you are recruited under any government office, be it the union government, be it the state government, you do not become eligible to be appointed either as a district judge. All right. So government office implies a judicial office. All right. Now, whenever you sit for these district judges exams, there are 2 types of judges. One is for the district court, subordinate court judges, and then one is for the district judge. So for the district judge, you had to have a 7-year sole experience as a practicing advocate or lawyer, and then you could be, it could be applicable to you to be appointed as a district judge. Now, in this new judgment, they've said that a combined experience of 7 years as an advocate and in service will be eligible for direct recruitment as a district judge. पहले नहीं था. पहले ये जुडिशियल ऑफिसर्स को कंसिडर नहीं करते थे. इट वाज सीन एज एन ऑफिस ऑफ प्रॉफिट अंडर द यूनियन गवर्नमेंट. अब कंसिडर कर रहे हैं कि इफ यू आर ऑलरेडी एज अ subordinate judge etc, so that will also, and you have maybe not practiced, so that will maybe you only practice for 2 years or 3 years and then you became a subordinate judge. So your entire tenure as a subordinate judge and your practicing tenure also, if in totality it is 7 years, you will be eligible to be appointed as a direct district judge. All right. Okay. So this was authored by, keep in mind the justices who were involved. Chief Justice B.R. Gavai, Justices Arvind Kumar, S.C. Sharma, K.V. Chandran, and M.M. Sundaresh. All right. These were the 4 plus 1 5 judges who made this judgment. It said that the Supreme Court held that judicial officers with combined experiences of 7 years as an advocate and in service will be eligible for direct recruitment as district judges. It held that Article 233 permitted both advocates and in service candidates to be appointed as district judges and extended the criteria of 7 years practice to judicial officers as well. Initially, it was only that 7 years working as a good advocate. Now, both 7 years has to be your total experience, which can be inclusive of your experience as a judicial officer also. All right. Okay. Appointment of district judges, Article 233 to 237 in Part 6 of the Constitution deals with appointment. Appointment authority कौन है? In a state are appointed by the governor in consultation with the High Court. Only the district judges, the subordinate judges, are appointed by the governor in consultation with the High Court. The judges of the High Courts and the Supreme Court are appointed by the president, not the governor. All right? Okay. Then coming to the next topic in national news, which is the 3 green hydrogen ports that have been declared in India. All right? Okay. Now, this particular port declaration, the names though are important, but other than that also, the National Green Hydrogen Mission is very important. All right? Okay. So, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, the name of the ministry is important, that although they've declared green hydrogen ports, the ports hai, it is not under Ministry of Shipping, Waterways and Ports. It is under Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Alright, do not get confused that although they are ports, but it is under Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Why? Because new and renewable energy is what hydrogen is. Alright, okay. Has formally recognized 3 ports as green hydrogen ports. Who is the Minister of New and Renewable Energy? Prahlad Joshi. We had Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways is not a part of it, but the Minister of Ports, Shipping and Waterways is Sarbananda Sonowal. Keep the name in mind. All right. Okay. These are the 3 ports that have been declared. One is your Deen Dayal Port in Gujarat, Biochatambanar Port in Tamil Nadu, and Paradip Port Authority in Odisha. Achha, this particular port is also known as Kandla Port. Alright, please keep the other names also in mind, known as Kandla. Biochatambanar Port is known as Tuticorin Port. And it was, I think, renamed in 2011. Alright, and Paradip is known as Paradip only. Alright, so Paradip Port is in Odisha, and Paradip is the only single major port of Odisha. Alright, Deen Dayal Port, Kandla mein, to Kandla important इसलिए है because Kandla is one port which was developed after independence when one of our major ports, that is the Karachi port, it went to Pakistan. Alright, so Karachi port went to Pakistan. Too much of traffic was taking place in Mumbai port, so they had to develop another one which was Kandla in Gujarat. Alright, another speciality of the Kandla port is that it is a tidal port. Alright, tidal port क्यों है? मतलब कि it works effectively and keeps on experiencing tides. So tides are rise or fall in sea water due to the gravitational attraction or pull of the earth, the sun and the moon. ठीक है, तो जब ये तीनों forces एक साथ काम करती है, there is significant rise in water and fall in water. And अगर tides आते हैं, तो they help the ships. Why? Because ज्यादा पानी हो जाएगा, आसानी से ships अंदर आ जाएंगी, बाहर भी निकल जाएंगी. And one very good example I'll give you, I don't know if you all remember, but I think 2-3 years back in the Suez Canal, there was this ship that got stuck for a week. Its name was Ever Given. And and it got stuck for an entire week, and they made mad efforts to clear the mud and soil and everything to make that ship turn and everything. But the ship was finally let out after there was a high tide in the Suez Canal. All right, so tides help us this way. All right, so it is a tidal port. याद रखना. Tuticorin port was also developed in Tamil Nadu. Tuticorin port is in Tamil Nadu, and Tuticorin port was the second port that was developed in Tamil Nadu. It was developed to release pressure on the Chennai port. All right. Now, one thing important about the Chennai port is that it is India's oldest artificial harbor. Artificial why? Because our eastern coast is fairly plain without any natural indentations, etc. So obviously, when there are no natural indentations, it becomes difficult to make ports, etc. So to artificially create it. So that is India's oldest because it was built by the Britishers. So Chennai is oldest artificial harbor. Even Tuticorin naturally is in Tamil Nadu. This is also an artificial port. All right, not a naturally found. Okay, and then Paradip port in Odisha. Only keep in mind that it is Odisha's largest. All right. So these three ports have been declared as green hydrogen ports. These are other ports of India. If you want to look into it, Kolkata port in West Bengal has just itna upar nahi hai, it is here somewhere. And just below Kolkata port, we have Haldia port. All right. Haldia port was again developed to release pressure on Kolkata port. Speciality of Kolkata port, only riverine port of India. All right, it is located on the Hooghly River. All right, then the Paradip port, then we have Visakhapatnam port in Andhra Pradesh. Visakhapatnam port again speciality, deepest landlocked port of India. All right, landlocked meaning surrounded by land. It is connected through a small channel to the sea. Then Ennore, Chennai, and Tuticorin. These are three ports, and Tamil Nadu is that one single state which has the highest number of major ports. All right, so ये याद रखना. Ennore is a port trust, and it is one of the newest ports that have been developed. All right. Then Port Blair port, which is also the Galathea Bay, which is being developed here. All right. Then Kochi port in Kerala, Mangalore, Marmugao, Goa's only port is Marmugao. Jawaharlal Nehru port, JNPT, also known as Nhava Sheva. It is India's most mechanized and modern port. Why? Because latest hai. And then Mumbai port, one of the oldest ports in India, and Mumbai port ka speciality that it handles the maximum trade by volume in India. Okay? And then we have the Kanda. Right? Chalo. You want to add something?
Well, I just want to ask what is green hydrogen?
हाँ पूछिए. बाकी वाले भी थोड़े बताइए.
So, ma'am just mentioned about the green hydrogen ports that are coming up. Can you also tell me what is going to be the first make in India green hydrogen port? Achha, it's already mentioned. The first make in India port is going to be the Kanda port, which is going to be the first made in India. Made in India का मतलब हो गया जो भी सामान यहाँ पे लेंगे वो maximum India में ही produce होगा. So the first port is going to be the Deen Dayal port or the Kanda port. Okay, I want you to know the basic difference between green hydrogen, the grey hydrogen, and the blue hydrogen. Okay, so you know green hydrogen जो है ये इसका जो source है, I mean you have to basically break water right into O2 and H2, right? So ये तुम्हारा green hydrogen निकला. ये जो हाइड्रोजन अगर इलेक्ट्रोलाइसिस से हो रहा है तो तब हम लोग उसको क्या कहते हैं ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन. एंड व्हाट इज द पावर दैट वी आर यूजिंग? द पावर वी आर यूजिंग इज थ्रू सोलर, विंड और हाइडल or renewable energy. So solar, wind or hydel power or renewable energy. So that is when it is a green hydrogen. When it is blue hydrogen, तो हम लोग मीथेन यूज करते हैं उसमें. ओके, फॉसिल फ्यूल को हम लोग यूज कर रहे हैं, उसमें जो कार्बन एमिशन हो रहा है राइट, उसको हम स्टोर कर रहे हैं, वो बाहर नहीं जा रहा है. इट इज नॉट एक्चुअली बाहर, मतलब पूरा तो नहीं, मतलब वी आर एबल टू कंटेन ऑलमोस्ट 80 to 90%, बट स्टिल 10% चले जाता है. बट यस, टू अ लॉट ऑफ एक्सटेंट वी आर एबल टू सेव द पोल्यूशन वाला पार्ट. ठीक है, So that is blue hydrogen, in which we are able to control the emissions. So hydrogen to आपका बन गया, but when we are using methane, that itself is leading to pollution. So when we are able to save the carbon emission, we are going to store it somewhere, then it is a blue hydrogen. And when we are not able to store it, then it is called as a green hydrogen. I want, since we already mentioned this particular topic, I want you to look at COP26, the Panchamrit, which was at Glasgow, right? Prime Minister Modi made a commitment for 50% of the energy that we are going to be producing by 2030 is going to be renewable source of energy. So please have a look at COP26 Glasgow Panchamrit. All right. Also, look at the National Green Hydrogen Mission. The National Green Hydrogen Mission, ma'am is just going to mention about it. She's going to talk about it. This started in 2023, and it aligns with our, Panchamrit's, Prime Minister Modi's Panchamrit's mission, which was in COP 2026. ठीक है? तो इसको तुम अलाइन करो. कितना हमारा टारगेट है? 50% फॉसिल फ्यूल. कितना हमें कार्बन एमिशन कम करना है? तो ये उसका पार्ट हो जाए. ठीक है? See, this is a budget that has been approved for the National Green Hydrogen Mission. It is 19,744 crores, and this mission started in the year 2023. So you may be asked a question as to what is the National Green Hydrogen Mission? When was it launched? It was launched in 2023. This is the budget outlay. And what are we looking at? We are looking at least a production of 5 MMT, million metric tons per annum. And what is the amount that we want to produce? The amount that we want to produce is 125 gigawatts of energy to be produced, right? Through the green hydrogen mission. So this is the amount that we are looking at. Okay? Baki ye sab jobs ka theek hai. We are looking at 6 crore jobs, 60 lakh jobs in fact. 6 lakh jobs.
Okay, just one more thing. One of you asked this question, so it becomes relevant. That hydrogen as a gas was found by Henry Cavendish. All right, Henry Cavendish. He was the person who found it, and then we have or Anthony, you can basically call him Lavoisier. Yeah. Lavoisier, who named it. Okay, so the gas was discovered by Henry Cavendish, and it was named by Anthony or whatever Lavoisier. All right, so keep the names in mind. Now coming to the mission. The things that you have to keep in mind with respect to the mission is 4th of January 2023 it was passed, and till 2030. So naturally it's a 7-year mission. Keep in mind total budgetary outlay. Please keep the figures in mind. 19,744 crore of rupees. What is its mission? Its mission is to make, or aim is to make India a global hub for production, usage, as well as export of green hydrogen. Now we're not talking about hydrogen, we're talking about green hydrogen. Green hydrogen, as sir told you all, is hydrogen which is produced by splitting H2O into hydrogen using renewable energy sources. All right. So when this splitting is done using renewable energy, it is a green hydrogen. Blue hydrogen is when this splitting takes place, although using carbon dioxide or carbon infested sources or fossil fuels things. But as much as carbon dioxide that we are using in the production of this hydrogen, we are sequestrating the equal amount of carbon dioxide also. All right, so it has less negative impact. Then gray hydrogen is when we make use of fossil fuels and there is no such carbon sequestration that takes place. There is one pink hydrogen also, which is where the water molecule is split using nuclear energy brought in or used from nuclear sources. All right. They just keep in mind, read a little bit into it. There is one yellow hydrogen also, which we specifically undertake splitting of water using energy, right, only from solar energy. तो ये सारी कुछ एक turquoise है, one is grey, one is brown also, one is black also. You'll find one major list, go through wherever you find it. Okay? Chalo. So then coming to the mission has a target of 5 million metric tons. MMT children, million metric tons. Alright? Million metric tons per annum. Per annum मतलब कि हर साल we are going to produce 5 million metric tons of hydrogen using renewable energy sources. Alright? Of green hydrogen by 2030 under the mission. This particular ideation is a part of the mission itself. Alright, which is strategic interventions for green hydrogen transition. SITE. Alright, SITE program has been undertaken under this particular mission. Remember the full form. The full form is important. Strategic interventions for green hydrogen transition, which says or provides incentives for manufacturing electrolyzers and production of green hydrogen, meaning that maybe hydrogen production has been undertaken in the country for many years before also. ठीक है, इससे पहले भी हम कर रहे होंगे hydrogen production, but it was not undertaken in a green method, meaning that these electrolyzers which are used to split these atoms or molecules, yes, renewable energy से नहीं source हो रहे थे. So under SITE, whatever is the present structure or present form of splitting these water molecules or atoms, अभी तक अगर हम green energy नहीं use कर रहे थे, तो under SITE it is going to incentivize the already existing hydrogen splitting mechanisms or countries or whatever to transition into renewable energy sources to produce green hydrogen. Okay, तो ये दिमाग में रखना, it is important. This investment is estimated to create 6 lakh jobs by 2030. 6 lakh jobs, rat lena. All right. Green hydrogen has the potential to replace the utilization of imported fossil fuels across various sectors. Imported fossil fuels का मतलब यहाँ पर क्या है? ये है कि we are not self-sufficient when it comes to energy resources. हमारा जितना भी energy requirement है specifically for oil, petroleum, we have to import. You all see right now Trump is imposing so much of tariffs on us. So why is he imposing so much of tariffs? He's imposing these tariffs because he says that we are buying too much of Russian oil. So ये Russian oil is fossil fuel. So we want to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels. और वो कैसे करेंगे? By generating large quantities of hydrogen, which is seen as a probable and more effective source of fuel or energy. All right. Green hydrogen has the potential imported fuels across various sectors, including fertilizer production, petroleum refining, mobility, means transportation sector, steel production, etc. The mission is expected to reduce a cumulative 1 lakh crore of fossil fuel imports by 2030. Again, very important target. Remember it. All right. Okay. You want to add something in this? Alright, then coming to the next important one, which is Maitri 2. Alright, अच्छा अब Maitri 2 के साथ साथ you need to remember कुछ और चीजें भी. One is an organization जिसको हम NCGOR कहते हैं, ठीक है? National Center for Polar and Oceanic Research. तो National Center for Polar and Oceanic Research, why is it important? क्योंकि यही एक वो organization है which undertakes our पोलर मिशंस, ठीक है? तो हमारे पोलर मिशंस इससे होते हैं NCPOR, and why I'm mentioning this is it was established in 1998. तो 1998 में establish हुआ था. इस साल it is completing 25 years. It has completed 25 years. Alright. तो 1998 से इस साल I don't know how, but the government is somehow celebrating 25 years of the establishment of NCPOR, and its headquarters is in Vasco in Goa, and it undertakes all our missions to these polar regions. All right. So as of now, you have the data in the slides. As of now, we have 3 missions in Antarctica and 1 mission in Arctic. All right. With the 3 missions in Antarctica, the first one that we had sent was Dakshin Gangotri. It was in 1983. Dakshin Gangotri in 1983. That was India's first mission. And then we did not have NCPOR. It was just sent otherwise only. And 1983 se leke 1990 tak, for 7 years, the mission was well and working. But then after 7 years, the mission was decommissioned. All right. So as of now, that mission is still there. It still exists. But it is only used as a warehouse for our other missions in Antarctic. The other 2 missions are Maitri 1, and after that we sent Bharti. So together, in total, we have 3 missions in Antarctica, and now the government is planning to send the 4th mission to Antarctic, which is Maitri 2. All right, and 1 mission is in Arctic, which is Himadri, which is there since 2008. All right. Okay, so first thing that this mission is going under the National Center for Polar and Oceanic Research. All right, National Center of Polar and Oceanic Research is our nodal agency which looks after our polar missions and expeditions. All right, and National Center for Polar Research works under the Ministry of Earth Sciences. All right, but when you all see here, the approval for this particular mission is given by the Finance Ministry. All right. So there are 2 ministries which are involved with Maitri 2. One is the Finance Ministry, which has given the approval. Why involvement of Finance Ministry is important? Because obviously रोकड़ा कौन देगा इसको वहाँ खड़ा करने के लिए? So it is Finance Ministry. But खड़ा कौन करेगा और काम वहाँ पे कौन करेगा? Ministry of Earth Sciences. So there are 2 ministries involved. Remember, all right. Abhi eventually even External Affairs would also get involved in this. All right. Okay. So Finance Ministry has given approval for Maitri 2. Remember Finance Ministry. Remember NCPOR 1998. Vasco da Gama or Vasco in Goa is its headquarters, and it has undertaken 4 missions, 3 missions to Antarctica, 1 mission to Arctic. All right, and it works under Ministry of Earth Sciences. All right, this particular mission, Maitri 2, will be larger than its predecessor, Maitri 1, which plans to design it as a green research base. Again, green one, renewable energy, solar energy harness karega. Includes using renewable energy sources, solar power for summer expeditions. 6 महीने की गर्मी होती है अंटार्कटिका में, right? Summer expeditions and wind energy to harness the strong Antarctic winds to run the station's operations. So solar and wind, only 2 renewable energy sources are used, no other. Like tidal नहीं use होगी, hydel नहीं use होगी, hydel as in the water one, it will not be used because Antarctica is frozen. Alright, so remember only solar and wind to run the station's operations. Then January 2029 is important, where they finish its construction. All right, nodal agency NCPOR. Other places important, we have Dakshin Gangotri. So Dakshin Gangotri is India's first international base itself. इससे पहले इंडिया ने कोई नहीं भेजा था. The first one itself was Dakshin Gangotri, and it was there put there in 1983. It was decommissioned in 1990. ठीक है, it still exists there and it serves as a warehouse for the other 2. Maitri, which was in 1989, and it is situated along the Shimaker Oasis. It is a 20-kilometer ice-free landmass, and Bharti has been active there since 2012. All right. 1 station is in Arctic, which is Himadri, and it has been there since 2008. अच्छा, याद कैसे रखोगे? दक्षिण आर्कटिक नॉर्थ में है, अंटार्कटिक साउथ में है. ऑलराइट, सो आर्कटिक, when we look at the Himalayas, तो Himalayan mountain system इंडिया के नॉर्दर्न मोस्ट स्ट्रेच पे है, and the Himalayan mountain system has its highest range as the Himadri ranges. Alright, तो हिमाद्री हिमालय की हाईएस्ट है, हिमालय इंडिया के नॉर्थ में है. तो एक मिशन जो हमने नॉर्थ पोल में भेजा है वो हिमाद्री है. बाकी जो 3, अब ये चौथा भी है, वो सब अंटार्कटिका में गया, which is in south. Alright, okay. Here you can see on the map. This is our present stations. ये मैत्री है, मैत्री 1. This is दक्षिण गंगोत्री. तो जो झंडे दिख रहे हैं, here. This flag here, this is Maitri. This flag here, this is Dakshin Gangotri, and this here is Bharti. All right. भारती के पास ही अब हमारा ये वाला जो पॉइंट है यहाँ पर we are going to set our Maitri 2 by 2029. ठीक है? Alright. Want to add something?
I can just add some fun fact.
हाँ, please कर दीजिए.
Okay.
अच्छा एक और चीज, just one more thing. जो अंटार्कटिक है, अंटार्कटिक के लिए there is a treaty. Okay, the Antarctic Treaty, its name is only, and it was signed in 1959 during the Cold War period. Okay, तो 1959 में Antarctic Treaty sign हुई थी. इसलिए sign हुई थी 1959 it was signed, and then it was enforced in 1961. Enforced in 1961, and initially it was signed with 12 countries. अब I think इसके 60 members हो गए. India is also a member of it. हाँ, India is a member of the Antarctic Treaty, and Antarctic Treaty keeps on having its meetings. So India has hosted 2 meetings. One was I think in 2007 in Delhi, and one was last year in Kochi in 2024. इस साल Antarctic Treaty की meeting हुई है इटली में. Alright, it was in June 2025, so it had its this year meeting in Italy in 2025, and this treaty was signed during the period of the Cold War to basically preserve Antarctic region and to only use it for peaceful scientific research and exploration and not for testing bombs. Alright, तो इसलिए ये साइन करा गया था, और इसका कोई हेडक्वार्टर नहीं है, but it has its permanent secretariat at Buenos Aires in Argentina. Alright.
Okay, I think.
यही बताना था.
नहीं, मैं बस ये बताना चाह रहा था कि जो biggest
बता दिए.
iceberg that is separated.
Please बता दिए.
So just a fun fact here that if you go to the previous slide here, ma'am has already mentioned about Dakshin Gangotri. So this was the first one in 1983. Then we had Bharti. Then we had Maitri, which was in 1989. Then we had Bharti in 2012. And now the next one, Maitri 2, is going to be in Maitri 2 is going to be in the year 2029 तक वो कमीशन हो जाएगा. It is going to be somewhere here, right? अच्छा, एक और चीज मैंने कुछ क्वेश्चंस कभी देखा है ऐसा that एक आइस उनका वो है, it's an iceberg that is separated from Antarctica and which has become a cause of concern, and especially from this global warming and melting, and this separated from Antarctica. उसका नाम याद रखना. I think it's called A23A. This is the name of the iceberg, and this separated in the year 1986. This iceberg separated. ठीक है? तो इसका याद रखना. The country which has got maximum number of research stations in Antarctica, this is just a fun fact, is Argentina. Argentina has got the maximum number of research station in Antarctica. Okay, and not the biggest one USA has it, but I mean, it has got 6 research stations, which is the maximum number. In fact, Argentina का एक जो एकदम southern most part है, it's called I think Ushuaia or something, which is very close to Chile, and Ushuaia say it's called the gateway to Antarctica. So if you have to travel to Antarctica, this is the closest that you can go to, and approximately it's 1140 kilometers something from there. So it's the closest to go to Antarctica. If somebody wants to, so there are expeditions going to Antarctica. So Ushuaia, which is it's like almost the southmost tip of Argentina, is where you can go. You can also go from Chile, right? You can also go from Cape Town, which is South Africa. You can also go from Tasmania, Hobart, and you can also go from New Zealand. Okay, so there are many ways that you can actually go and have a look at Antarctica. I think that's about it. Himadri, we've already covered it. Yeah. So. Wait.
The next one is India getting 5 new blue flag beaches. Okay. Now, blue flag beaches is a criteria that is given by an organization which is known as Foundation for something environment something, FEE. and it is a non-profit organization from Denmark. The entire purpose of giving blue flag recognitions to beaches is that these beaches are very clean, nice, environment friendly, well protected beaches, so उनको हम blue flag beaches कह देते हैं. So 5 new beaches, and all of them in Maharashtra, they have been given the blue flag tags. It's a very minor topic. I don't think so that they'll ask you in CLAT, but maybe becomes an important one for ADEC. All right, and even if maybe in CLAT they ask you, so they'll ask you relating it to something else. All right, not a full-fledged anticipated questions, but then we never know. Okay, the 5 new beaches from Maharashtra. These are the names of them. Shrivardhan and Nagaon beaches in Raigad district, Parnaka and Palghar, Guhagar and Ladghar beaches in Ratnagiri district. What are they? They are globally recognized eco-label awarded to beaches, marinas and sustainable boating tourism operators that meet stringent standards for environmental quality, safety and management. Organization involved was नाम याद रखना, Foundation for Environmental Education by Denmark. All right, India joined this blue flag program in 2018 और तब से लेके आज तक हमको अब इस inclusion के बाद we have a total of 18 beaches which have been given this recognition. Okay, so ये क्यों देते हैं? To promote sustainable ecotourism etc. 6 criteria: environmental education, engagement, climate action, biodiversity management, pollution and water quality, accessibility in the sense that inclusive accessibility to all, safety and services. Currently, we now have 13 plus 5, 18 blue flag beaches. Number याद रखना, ठीक है? चलो. Then coming to the new appointment this year, which is the 53rd Chief Justice of India, Justice Suryakant. All right. तो just कुछ चीजें इसमें हमें देखनी है. One is that how is or which article provides for its appointment. It is Article 124 of the Constitution, which provides for क्या हो गया? Which provides for the appointment of the Chief Justice of India. All right. Now, this appointment is made by the President. Naturally, it is not a discretionary power of the President. The President acts on the advice of the Chief Justice of India, who gives this advice to the Law Minister of India, and the Law Minister gives this advice to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister finally gives the advice to the President. All right. So, it is appointed by the President, and he is succeeding Justice B.R. Gavai. ठीक है? तो appointment होती कैसे है? See, now it is a convention. Okay, convention in the sense nowhere written in the constitution, but it is a followed tradition. ये बस हम सालों से follow करते आ रहे हैं. तो पहला tradition क्या है? The first tradition is that the senior most judge of the Supreme Court is appointed as the next Chief Justice of India. Now, that may be for 1 month also, 1 week also, any time, any duration of time, but the senior most judge. Again, a convention, not a given in the constitution. दूसरा convention या tradition हम क्या follow करते हैं? The second one is that this particular recommendation is generally taken a month before the retirement of the present Chief Justice. ठीक है? So the present Chief Justice is set to retire in a month. Less than a month now. So that is why this entire recommendation was taken by the present Chief Justice and the new one was appointed. ठीक है? तो appointment process देख लो फटाफट. Union Ministry of Law and Justice seeks the recommendation. Why? Because this CGI gives the recommendation to this minister. This minister gives it to the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister gives it to the President, and the President makes this appointment. ठीक है? All right. A lot of you had this question also. Some of you had even asked this in the doubt group. So the breaching of the principle of the seniority principle has been undertaken thrice till now. All right. So पहला वाला कब हुआ था? The first one was in 1964, where Justice Gajendra Gadkar was superseded by Justice Imam. ये सिर्फ इसलिए किया गया था because it was on health grounds. He was not keeping well, बीमार थे, तो इसके वजह से Justice Imam was appointed. So that is why this did not become a bone of contention. Alright, कि इसमें breach करना was valid. That is why nobody said anything. अच्छा, इसके पहले भी I think the first time 1950 या किसी के टाइम पर एक बार ऐसा हुआ था. They were talking about breaching this principle, या ऐसा कुछ हुआ था, तो all the judges of the Supreme Court had protested. They said that all of them are going to resign if this particular principle is breached. तो उसके बाद फिर जल्दी करा नहीं गया. इस बार 1964 में किया गया, but then nobody went against it because the grounds are valid. The second time happened in 1973 when Justice A.N. Ray was made the Chief Justice of India by Indira Gandhi, and he superseded 3 senior most judges, Justice Hegde, Shelat, and Justice Grover. All right. So यहाँ से this became a major bone of contention, and cases were filed against Indira Gandhi. All right. Then the next one again in 1977 when Justice M.H. Bay superseded Justice H.R. Khanna. So in total, there have been 3. You can remember the name of the judges. All right. Okay. Then how is this particular appointment made? The CJI makes this recommendation to the Union Minister of Law and Justice as at present. Who is the Union Minister of Law and Justice? Then that Minister of Law and Justice makes this recommendation to the Prime Minister. Who is the current Prime Minister of India? And the Prime Minister makes this recommendation of the President. And who is the current President of India? बता देना अगर तुम लोग को आता होगा तो. Okay. Then memorandum of procedure provides the guidelines for appointing this. Chief Justice of India and other judges are appointed by the President under Article 124. Appointed मतलब बस एक formal ceremony में नाम बोल देते हैं. Okay? How CJ and SCR appointment seniority principles करते हैं. Government initiates the process. The law minister asks for the name by the CJI. All right. CJI makes this recommendation approved by the Prime Minister, appointed by the President. All right. Appointment of other judges are appointed by the President based on recommendation of a collegium, which consists of the Chief Justice and 4 other senior most judges of the Supreme Court. This is for appointment of Supreme Court judges. ठीक है. बाकी judges इस collegium के basis पर होते हैं. High Court के judges appointed by the President under Article 217, recommendation of the Collegium, Chief Justice of India, and 2 senior most judges of the 2 other Supreme Court senior most judges. ठीक है. ये Collegium system आया कैसे? There were a total of 3 judges cases, 1981, 93, and 1998. 1981 said that the recommendation made by the Chief Justice of India is not binding on the President. The President can act otherwise. It was overturned 1993 where they said that the recommendation made by the Chief Justice of India is binding on the President. President को उसी का नाम appoint करना है. 1998 में they said the Chief Justice alone cannot make this recommendation. It has to be brought in on the basis of a college of people, that is CJI plus 4 senior most judges. ठीक. फिर इसके ऊपर भी बवाल मचा, and 2014 we had the 99 Constitution Amendment Act, which brought in NJAC or National Judicial Appointments Committee. This NJAC called for inclusion of the CJI, the Union Minister of Law and Justice, 2 other eminent jurists, etc., on the recommendation of the Prime Minister, the leader of opposition. So it basically included members of the executive and the legislature, which went against the principle of independence of the judiciary. So NJAC was scrapped 1 year later to the 4th judge's case, 2015. All right, and therefore no outsider, in the sense no member of the executive or legislature can be appointed. Only members of the judiciary can make appointments to the judiciary. Okay? All right. Then coming to the next topic, which is 150 years of Vande Mataram. Very interesting. नहीं. Constitutional bench में minimum of 5 judges होने चाहिए. That is all. It can be more than 5 judges also, but minimum 5 judges. Okay. 150 years of Vande Mataram. Important है. A little facts into it. कि वंदे मातरम का मीनिंग क्या है? I bow to the mother, that is Mother India. This is India's national song, and it was written by Bankim Chand Chattopadhyay, also known as Bankim Chand Chatterjee. ठीक है? तो Chatterjee and Chattopadhyay are the same surnames. Chattopadhyay was apparently difficult for the Britishers to यूज, तो उन्होंने चट्टोपाध्याय को एंग्लिसाइज करके चैटर्जी कर दिया. ऑलराइट, तो चट्टोपाध्याय एंड चैटर्जी आर द सेम थिंग. So you may find his name as Bankim Chand Chatterjee at some places, as Bankim Chand Chattopadhyay at some places. Alright, the same thing. It was composed in Sanskritized Bengali, मतलब a mixture of both the languages, Sanskrit as well as Bengali. It was written in 1870s and it was first published in his novel, Bankim Chand Chatterjee's novel, Anand Mathan, 1882. It was sung for the first time publicly by Rabindranath Tagore in 1896 Congress session, which took place in Calcutta. Okay? Then it became the anthem of India's freedom struggle, etc. And the Indian National Congress in 1937 adopted its first two stanzas as the national song, and this national song, along with the national anthem, was adopted as the national song and national anthem of India on 24th of January 1950. The date is important. ठीक है? National anthem हमारी जनगण मन है. Jangan Man is written by Rabindranath Tagore, and Jangan Man was originally written in Bengali. The name was Bharto Bhagyo Vidhata, and it was for the first time sung in the 1911 session. और उसके बाद फिर इसको हमने जनगण मन was adopted as the national anthem of India. इसका एक हिंदी version भी है, सुख सुख चैन, which was INA's version, national song. Okay. Alright. Current status, government ने इसको recognize किया है in the same stature as the national anthem. Although national song is not included in that one fundamental duty mentioned in part 4A of the constitution, but it is understood that when that fundamental duty calls for all citizens to respect the national flag and national anthem, it includes respecting the national song also. Alright? इसके अलावा citizens are encouraged to show equal respect to both वंदे मातरम and जनगण मन. दिल्ली हाई कोर्ट ने 2022 में एक एफिडेविट इशू करके बोला था. Alright? Okay. Then coming to the 8th Pay Commission. Alright? The 8th Pay Commission important this year क्योंकि हर 10 साल पर आती है. अब दोबारा आई है after the last 10 years. So what are the things that you have to keep in mind? First, that is formed every 10 years. Alright? It is formed every 10 years. The first one was formed in 1946. और उसके बाद 10 कभी 10 साल कभी 12 साल के इंटरवल्स पे फॉर्म होती रहती है. Then it is an advisory body. Advisory body मतलब that it gives advice which is not binding on the government. All right, the government may agree to it, may not agree to it. 8th Pay Commission करती क्या है? Basically calls for increase in salaries and allowances of the central government employees. ठीक है? तो अब जो है 8th वाली आई है, obviously किसके अंडर काम करेगी? Ministry of Finance. All right. So these are the things about the Pay Commission that you have to keep in mind. All right. चलो. अब present वाली की बात करते हैं. So it has approved the terms of reference. Terms of reference मतलब that in case the government decides to increase the salaries allowances of any of your parents who are working in this with the government in the central services anywhere, तो ये particular terms को consider करके the government can decide for increase in salaries and pensions and allowances. All right. Then again, the name of this beautiful woman, the Prime Minister's favorite, Justice Ranjana Prakash Desai. Her name is important. This year, she's heading everything majorly which can in any way affect the central government. सब कुछ ये head कर रही हैं. तो she is now heading the 8th Pay Commission also. She head the UCC Draft Commission of Uttarakhand, presently heading the UCC Draft Commission of Gujarat, then the Delimitation Commission of India, and also the Press Council of India. तो इतनी सारी चीजें ये मैडम अकेले. Alright? Okay. So 8th Pay Commission is a temporary expert body. केवल recommendations देने के लिए बनाई जाती है, फिर खत्म कर दी जाती है. Set up by the Union Government, review and recommend recommendations in salary structure, etc. of central government employees. बच्चों central government employees याद रखना, it is only for central government and no other authority. Established January 2025 में after the cabinet approval in October 2025 to ensure timely implementation from 2026. ठीक है? Announcement जनवरी में हो गई थी, फॉर्म अक्टूबर में हुई है और इसका whatever terms of reference है implement 2026 से हो जाएगा. चेयरपर्सन कौन है? जस्टिस रंजना प्रकाश देसाई. पार्ट टाइम मेंबर प्रोफेसर पुलक घोष, IIM बैंगलोर के हैं. मेंबर सेक्रेटरी पंकज जैन, पेट्रोलियम सेक्रेटरी. ठीक है? ओके. टेन्योर क्या है? The commission will submit its final report within 18 months of the constitution. Interim recommendations and all दे सकती है. क्या क्या cover करता है? Serving as well as retired employees of central government, defense forces, all India services and union territories. Pay and pension review करती है, fiscal prudence, equity across sectors, state finance impact, sustainability of pensions की बात करती है. Expected implementation क्या है? Is come into effect from 1st of January 2026. तो अगले साल से सबके मम्मी पापा की सैलरी बढ़ेगी. Alright, continuing the decade-long cycle of pay revisions. Okay, पहली बार कब आई थी? 1946 में. Quickly, just a glance at the other pay commissions. So the first one was in 1946. Now roughly हर 10 साल पे बननी होती है. 1-2 साल आगे पीछे हो जाता है. Alright, तो 1946 रघुवीर सिंह थे पहले वाले के चेयरपर्सन. Second, 1957, R.S. Ghosh. 70, J.M.M. Sinha. 1983, P.M. Singhal. 94, we had the fifth one. 6th, 7th, etc. याद कौन सी रखनी है? पहली वाली उसके चेयरपर्सन. 7th वाली February 2014, Justice A.K. Mathur. And the present one, 8th Pay Commission, January 2025, Justice Ranjana Prakash. ठीक है? Okay. Then coming to Human Rights Council. All right. So इस साल India has been elected as unopposed for the 7th time to the UN Human Rights Council. ठीक है? Before I get into this, please इस बार याद रखना कि Memory of the World program जो है, Memory of the World program में इंडिया के 14 दो इस साल inclusions हुए हैं. One is भगवद गीता नाट्य शास्त्र, which made India's entire inclusions 14. और ये दोनों इंडियन इंक्लूजन्स के साथ साथ द ओरिजिनल 1948 ह्यूमन राइट्स डिक्लेरेशन डॉक्यूमेंट हैज आल्सो बीन इंक्लूडेड इन द मेमोरी ऑफ द वर्ल्ड प्रोग्राम. ठीक है? तो ये याद रखना. ओके, सो इंडिया हैज बीन री-इलेक्टेड. हेडक्वार्टर्स इसका जिनेवा में है. टर्म 2026 टू 2028, 2 साल के लिए इलेक्ट हुए. ये इंडिया का 7th टर्म है. UNHRC बनी कब थी? 2006 में. 47 मेंबर स्टेट्स हैं. ये बेसिक ideas and focus. All right, so फटाफट we look into it. What you need to remember, 7th time elect हुई है और ये उसका 3-year term है. 2026 पूरा साल, 2027 पूरा साल और 2028 पूरा साल. तो 3 साल है. लिखा हमने 26 to 28 है, does not mean 2. All right, starting next year. बाकी the basics you all know. Remember, 2006 it was established. UN General Assembly ने इसको बनाया था. Headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. Human rights promote करती है. क्यों हुआ था? Under the UNGA resolution of 2006. Alright.
First Pay Commission का श्री श्रीनिवास वरदाचार्य.
बता दीजिए.
ठीक है, the first Pay Commission was Srinivas Varadacharya. Okay, the head of the first Pay Commission. He was also the first Chief Justice of the Federal Court. So, we'll just correct that part.
Alright, so he was not the first one.
Srinivas, remember that. Srinivas Varadacharya. He was the Chief Justice of the first Federal Court.
Okay, Srinivas
Varadacharya.
Varadacharya. Alright. Oh. Now, process of elections. ये याद रखना that UNHRC has 47 member states and it is elected directly by United Nations General Assembly through a secret ballot, meaning that nobody knows whom have you elected. All right. Members serve a 3-year term. 1/3 of the seats are renewed annually. Memberships are distributed this way: 13 from Africa, Asia Pacific has 13, 8 from Latin America and the Caribbean region. Western European regions have 7 and Eastern European regions have 6. All right. States can serve for a maximum of 2 consecutive terms. Okay. States can serve a maximum of 2 consecutive terms. So अभी अगर elect हुई है तो इसके बाद एक और बार लगातार elect हो सकती है. Then after a gap. All right. Okay. So India has served 7 times. 2006 to 7, this was for a 1-year period only. 2008 to 10, then 12 to 14, 15 to 17, 19 to 21, 22 to 24, and now 26 to 20. All right. Okay. Then awards and prizes. Now the first one is obviously the Nobel Prizes. So Nobel Prizes में you need to remember a lot of information. कि कब incept हुआ, why was it incepted, when is it given. Remember, it is not given on the birth anniversary of Alfred Nobel, it is given on the death anniversary of Alfred Nobel on 10th of December. So announce हर साल October में होते हैं, and then it is awarded in December. Then who gives this award and how many members annually. So one award can be given to a maximum of 3 people only. Also, one specialty about the Nobel Peace Prize, it can be given to organizations also. So everything related to the Nobel Prizes, we will be covering. All right. Okay. So the recipients of the prizes are called laureates. It was established by the will of Swedish inventor Alfred Nobel because he invented the dynamite. Okay, that is why Alfred Nobel is known. All right. The first prizes were awarded in 1901 and it was established in 1896. So 1896 when it was established, but the first award was given in 1901, and there were 2 times when the awards were not given, and they were during the First and the Second World War. It is announced in October and then it is formally presented every year on 10th of December. All right. It is given in 6 fields: physics, chemistry, physiology or medicine, literature, peace and economic sciences. Originally 1896 के will में और 1901 से it was only given in 5 fields. Economic sciences नहीं थे. Economic sciences were introduced in 1968 and this was introduced by the Riksbank, which is Swedish central bank. All right. Okay. Another key fact that a Nobel Prize can be shared up to 3 individuals. So when you see, most of the prizes are given to three individuals every year. In the case of a peace prize, it can also be awarded to an organization. Okay, peace prize organizations को जाता है, but other prizes are not given to organizations; they are given to individuals. To become a Nobel Prize laureate, one must be nominated for a prize by an eligible nominator. You can't self-nominate yourself. जैसे हमारे Padma Awards के लिए you can self-nominate yourself, but here you can't. All right. Nobel Prize cannot be awarded posthumously. Nobel Prizes posthumously नहीं दिए जाते हैं. That is why Mahatma Gandhi has not received a Nobel Prize. All right. Okay. However, since 1974, if the recipient dies after the prize has been announced, then he can still be given. So, the announcement is made every year in October. In case he dies after like 13th October, they make the end announcement. The person dies between 13th of October to 10th of December, he will still receive it. But otherwise, you can't be given the award posthumously. First Indian Nobel laureate was Rabindranath Tagore for literature, 1973, and first Indian woman Nobel laureate was Mother Teresa. She is not a born citizen of India, but she had acquired her citizenship till then. All right. Okay. Nobel Prize in Chemistry is the first one. So this was awarded by the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences and was given to Susumu Kitagawa from Japan, Richard Robson, and Omar M. Yagi. Do you remember those abbreviations? Batane? Okay. For their groundbreaking development of metal organic frameworks. So you just need to remember the names and you need to remember for what are they being awarded this. So you can see their pictures. Okay. Then Nobel Prize in Physics, again by Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences, 2025, given to John Clark from UK, Michel Devoret from France, John Martinis from US, again for quantum mechanical tunneling and energy quantization in electric circuit. ठीक है, तो quantum energy याद रखना, उसके basis पर इनको दिया गया है physics में. All right. Then in medicine, so in medicine it was actually given to 3 people, but one of them received it for something else, and the two others received it for a common this thing. All right. So was awarded for peripheral immune tolerance. Now Shimon Sakaguchi received it for regulatory T cells, and Brunko and Ramstein received it for identifying the FOXP3 gene, which controls immune regulation. All right. Then it is awarded by the Nobel Assembly at Karolinska Institute in Stockholm. The name of these institutions are important. All right. The first laureate in 1901 was Emil von Behring. All right. And Indian origin laureate in 1968 was Hargobind Khurana for in this particular field. All right. Okay. These are the three people who've been given the physiology or medicine award. All right. Then economics, again given to Joel Mukir, Philippe Aghion, and Peter Howitt for having explained innovation-driven economic growth. Now, one half of the prize will go to Joel Mukir for identifying sustained growth through technological progress. The other half is between these two people for creative destruction. Okay. So again, two different things they've been given this. Creative destruction is simply that in order to move ahead technologically and to further advance and promote economic growth, you need to do away with the redundant technologies, etc. All right. So that is what creative destruction means. This is given by the Riksbank in memory of Alfred Nobel, established in 1968 by Riksbank, and it was first awarded in 1969. All right. So initially it was not mentioned in the will in 1896 and not awarded from 1901 till 1969 when the first award was given. All right. Okay. These are the three people who've received this. Then we have the Nobel Prize for literature. All right. So literature, we have Laszlo Horkai. Because you can remember Laszlo, it's very difficult to pronounce that. All right. And now one thing for literature, that literature is not given to for any single particular work, but your entire body of work. All right. So there are various books written by him. Two of them are mentioned here. I can look into the others also. So it is given for your entire body of work, not specifically for one particular work. All right. For in case of Rabindranath Tagore, mostly it is associated with Gitanjali, but then he was a well-established and renowned author by then. All right. Okay. Then Nobel Peace Prize has been given to Maria Corina Machado. All right. So this is her, and she's from Venezuela, and she's been fighting against dictatorial regimes in Venezuela. All right. Okay. Come.
Just Vijay Puruskar and one more, right? Okay. Now I want you to have a look at the YouTube video which Aditya Baku sir has taken on Nobel Prize. It's a 1 hour video and it's quite comprehensive. The winner of the first award and everything. So please have a look at it because it's in a lot of detail. Since we're doing the monthly GK, we do not want to spend a lot of time. But yes, I'm going to give you certain pointers for this particular topic. Okay. And I try not to be repetitive. I mean, he has already covered a lot of it. So he has covered 1901 में जो पहली बार Nobel Prize मिला था, किस को मिला था, कौन से field से मिला था, and so on and so forth. So just remember the following things. Number one, the Nobel Prize, 21st of October, he was born, I think 1833, and he died on 10th of December 1896. ठीक है? तो 21st अक्टूबर को ये अनाउंस होता है और दिया जाता है अवार्ड 10th of December. दूसरी बात ये है कि इसमें दिया जाता है 11 मिलियन स्वीडिश क्रोना. ये मैंने क्वेश्चन बहुत बार देखा हुआ है कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम्स में. ठीक है, 11 मिलियन स्वीडिश क्रोना एंड दे गिव यू अ नोबेल डिप्लोमा एंड ठीक है. सो ये दो चीज है, एक नोबेल डिप्लोमा आपको मिलता है और 11 million Swedish krona मिलता है. ठीक है, which is almost equivalent to about 9 to 10. ठीक है, depending on the value of dollar. So this is approximately what the value of this would be. Okay. Now, important things that we need to remember here is 1901 का जो peace वाला है, peace, it went to Frederick Passy and the other one was Henry Durant. Henry Durant is also the founder of the Red Cross Society. And the Red Cross Society has won maximum number of Nobel Prize. It has won 3 times. Okay, it has won 3 times. The Red Cross Society has won the Nobel Prize 3 times. The other thing that we need to know is that UN and its specialized agencies and organizations which are associates of UN, they have won 12 prizes overall, Nobel Prize. Not a very important thing, but just keep it back of your mind that UN as an organization has got 12 Nobel Prizes. Okay, so for instance, Interparliamentary Government Panel for Climate Change (IPCC) इसको मिला था 2007 में, ठीक है. तो बहुत सारी यूएन की बॉडीज को मिला हुआ है. So we don't have to remember all of that. IPCC का नाम आ गया. Jim Stee is the person who is heading it. Anyway, so this was the research part of it. Now let's just come to the Indians who have won it, and then I'll tell you a way.
Sir, asking that, sir, is the amount the same for all states?
Yes. And एक और चीज याद रखना that अगर कोई ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है तब तो नंबर ऑफ पीपल कैन बी मेनी, ठीक है. तो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को आप तो दे रहे हो तो कोई फाइट नहीं है. बट अगर आप किसी इंडिविजुअल्स को दे रहे हो तो मैक्सिमम आप 3 लोग को दे सकते हो. और दूसरी बात, ये पॉस्टमसली नहीं दिया जा सकता है, ठीक है. महात्मा गांधी was recommended 5 times. He was also recommended in 1948, but he died that year. So 5 times he was nominated, but he never got it. So who are the Indians who have got it? Let's have a quick list of it. It would be a recap. One is Rabindranath Tagore. ठीक है. Rabindranath Tagore, Gitanjali, right? 1913. उसके बाद सीवी रमन. तो फिजिक्स में 2 लोगों को मिला है. तो जब हम इंडियन कह रहे हैं तो इंडियन अमेरिकन भी है, तो इंडियन ओरिजिन की बात हो रही है. तो इन्होंने डिस्कवरी किया था रमन इफेक्ट का 1928 में, तो इनको 1913 में मिला. ठीक है. The other person who got it was Chandrasekhar, right? The other person who got it was Chandrasekhar. I think it was in the year 1983 that he got this particular award, and this is also for physics. फिर मेडिसिन के लिए, Ananya just help me out with it. Medicine के लिए it was Hargobind Khurana. So medicine was Hargobind Khurana.
1968.
1968. So medicine के लिए only one person has got it till now, which is Hargobind Khurana. Economics is started in the year 1969. 1968 में established हुआ, पहली बार दिया गया 1969 में. And there are 2 Indians who have got it. One is Amartya Sen, who got it in 1999 or 98. Just check the date. It is either 1999 or 1998. And the other person who has got it is Abhijit Banerjee, who along with his wife, Duflo, got it in 2019. ठीक है? अच्छा, Amartya Sen is 1998. तो इकोनॉमिक्स के 2 हो गए. पीस में किस किस को मिला? अच्छा, मेडिसिन हो गया. केमिस्ट्री के लिए I think it is Venkat. Venkat got it in the year Venkat 2008 है या क्या है, चेक करो एक बार. केमिस्ट्री इज 2009 में इनको मिला. पूरा नाम बताना.
Venkat Raman Samkrishnan.
ओके, वेंकट रमन समथिंग. ठीक है, तो ये देख लो एक बार. तो केमिस्ट्री में 1 हो गया. पीस के लिए इंडिया में जो मैक्सिमम मिला है वो इन लोगों को मिला. सबसे पहले मदर टेरेसा होगी. मदर टेरेसा को मिल गया 1979 में. ठीक है. अच्छा, टेक्निकली स्पीकिंग ही इज नॉट एन इंडियन, ही इज अ टिबेटियन. So Dalai Lama got it in the year 1989, but we won't include that in the India on the list. ठीक है. Then we will for peace we will have Kailash Satyarthi. He got it in the year 2014. So Kailash Satyarthi got it in 2014. He got it with the youngest Nobel laureate till date, which is Malaya Yousaf. She also got it along with him 2014. ठीक है. So peace के लिए अभी तक 2 लोगों को मिला है. केमिस्ट्री में 1 हो गया. मेडिसिन में हरगोविंद खुराना हो गया. फिजिक्स में 2 लोग हो गए, सीवी रमन एंड चंद्रशेखर हो गए. और लिटरेचर के लिए रविन्द्रनाथ टैगोर हो गए. और मतलब ही इज आल्सो इंडियन ब्रिट. सो इज वीएस नायपॉल. तो वीएस नायपॉल गॉट इट इन 2001 if I am not mistaken. तो ये भी एक तुम्हारा एक कैटेगराइजेशन हो गया. ठीक है. Is that clear with everyone? Just put it in the comment box if that's okay. अच्छा, दूसरी चीज याद रखना that physics, chemistry or physics, chemistry, economics. This is given by the Royal Swedish Academy of Science. ठीक है. Even in physics, chemistry and economics. Literature is given by the Swedish Academy. ठीक है. Peace is given by the Norwegian Parliament. Peace is given by the Norwegian Parliament. Medicine is given by the Karolinska Institute. तो ये आप याद रखिएगा, 5 स्वीडन देता है और 1 नॉर्वे की पार्लियामेंट डिसाइड करता है। क्यों उनके विल में था ये, तो वी कांट गेट इनटू डिस्कशन ऑफ व्हाई नॉट, बट नॉर्वे का पार्लियामेंट इसको देता है। ठीक है, तो ये हमारा पार्ट हो गया। अच्छा, नेक्स्ट व्हाट वी विल डू इज वी विल जस्ट ट्राई एंड रिमेंबर द नेम्स ऑफ द विनर्स ऑफ दिस ईयर। ठीक है, तो आई जस्ट स्टार्ट विद जो मैम ने दिया है तुम्हें, एक एक करके उसको याद करने का क्या तरीका होगा वो देखो एक बार। सबके अपने तरीके हो सकते हैं, सबके अपने तरीके हैं, बट आई जस्ट टेल यू। अच्छा, द ओल्डेस्ट पर्सन टू गेट इट वाज गुड इनफ, right? He got it at the age of 98. He is no more. I think he got it in 2020 or 2021. He is no more now. He died last year, or I think, or last to last year. So good enough is the oldest. Malaya Yousaf is the youngest. Marie Curie is the only person who has got it in physics and chemistry, and the first person to get 2 Nobel prizes. ठीक है, चलो अब chemistry में कैसे याद रखना है, तो याद रखो, I mean there are a lot of ways. One is to chemistry lab है, तो Kitagawa is one word. तो Kitagawa is कितना बोलते हो Kitagawa, तो Kitagawa, Richard Robson, तो rich son, इसको ऐसे याद सकते हो rich son, ऑप्शन में तुम्हें rich son देखना है। ठीक है, तो Kitagawa, rich son, and the third one is yak. केमिस्ट्री लैब में जाओगे तो स्मेल गंदा गंदा आ रहा है yak, तो यहाँ पे आ गया याकी। ठीक है, तो Kitagawa, rich son and याकी। ठीक है, तो ये हो गया तुम्हारा। सेकंड हम लोग आते हैं तो Kitagawa, rich man sons. Kitagawa मतलब कितना बोलते हो, केमिस्ट्री लैब में बोले जा रहे हैं, प्रैक्टिकल एग्जाम हो रहा है। Kitagawa, rich son, and the third one is yak, केमिस्ट्री लैब। इसके एसोसिएशन केमिस्ट्री के साथ कर लिया। फिजिक्स में हम लोग आते हैं, तो फिजिक्स में देखो ऐसा याद रखो, एक क्लर्क है, क्लार्क आ गया। क्लर्क कहाँ पे होता है, एक मार्ट के अंदर होता है, तो मार्ट आ गया, ये मार्टिन का मार्ट आ गया, और दीवार। ठीक है, तो क्लर्क, मार्ट एंड दीवार, मार्ट एंड दीवार, ये तुम्हारा हो गया कि क्वांटम टनलिंग के लिए इसको मिला है। ठीक है, क्वांटम टनलिंग के लिए अवार्ड मिला है। अच्छा, ये देखते रहना तुम्हें एकदम घुसने की जरूरत नहीं है कि किस चीज के लिए दिया जा रहा है। ठीक है, बस इतना याद रखना, मेटल ऑर्गेनिक फ्रेमवर्क क्या होता है क्या नहीं होता है समझने की जरूरत नहीं है, बट मेटल ऑर्गेनिक फ्रेमवर्क के लिए मिला है, ये ऑप्शन तुम्हें देखना है। Kitagawa, rich son and याका, और दूसरे वाले का हो गया मार्ट, क्लर्क, एंड द थर्ड वन इज दीवार। बस ये कीवर्ड्स याद रखना। ठीक है, पूरा नाम याद करना बड़ा मुश्किल होगा, मतलब मेरे लिए तो बहुत मुश्किल होता है, तो यू ऑलवेज लुक एट सम एसोसिएशन। ठीक है, देन यू लुक एट मेडिसिन। देखो मेडिसिन इज वेरी इजी। हम कहते हैं ना व्हाट इज दैट कॉल्ड, काउ यूरिन, गाँव माता, उससे पीते हैं तो सही हो जाते हैं, तो मेडिसिन में काउ आ गया, काउ, राइट, एक काउ आ गया। दूसरा हो गया राम जी, भगवान का नाम लो तो सही हो जाओगे इंडिया में, तो है ना, मतलब सभी जगह, तो राम काउ। ठीक है, राम एंड काउ। और अगर नहीं है तो यार लाइफ एंजॉय करो, गुची का बैग ले लो, तो गुची आ गया यहाँ पे, राइट, तो काउ। ठीक है, एक हो गया काउ, भगवान का नाम लो सही हो जाओगे, इसलिए मेडिसिन आ गया, राइट, काउ। ठीक है, काउ की पूजा करो या काउ का व्हाटएवर पियो एंड यू विल बी फाइन, मेडिसिन, राइट, आई एम जस्ट किडिंग, राइट। एंड द थर्ड वन इज अ गुची बैग, राइट, कुछ नहीं है तो लिव हैप्पीली एंड यू विल बी ओके। ठीक है, so this is how you got it. You should also know the name of the guys who have got it, right? कौन-कौन से कंट्री को बिलोंग करते हैं, एक बार तुम उसको देख लेना। I'm not getting into that. अच्छा, इकोनॉमिक्स में इट इज पी स्क्वायर है। ठीक है, पीटर एंड फिलिप मोका पीते हैं, पीटर एंड फिलिप मोका पीते हैं, तो वही नाम आएगा। अभी देखो ये क्या आया, फिलिप, पीटर क्या पीते हैं, मोका पीते हैं। ठीक है, सो दीज आर द नेम्स दैट यू नीड टू रिमेंबर। फिर से हम लोग एक बार क्विक रिकैप करेंगे। केमिस्ट्री के लिए Kitagawa, कितना बोलते हो, रिच मैन का सन है, और एक हो गया यग, Kitagawa। हैव यू गॉट इट? केमिस्ट्री इज लाइक दिस। ठीक है, केमिस्ट्री में किसके लिए मिला, ऑर्गेनिक मेटल फ्रेमवर्क। सेकेंड हमने क्या देखा, फिजिक्स। फिजिक्स में कीवर्ड क्या था हमारा, मार्ट, दीवार और क्लर्क। ठीक है, इकोनॉमिक्स के लिए क्या था, पी स्क्वायर एन, फिलिप और पीटर मोका पीते हैं। ठीक है, उसके बाद मेडिसिन के लिए क्या है, काउ, राम और गुची बैग, ठीक है। आई थिंक वी हैव कवर्ड ऑल। अच्छा अभी लिटरेचर बचा हुआ है। अच्छा दूसरा पीस। अब पीस के लिए याद रखना, कोरोना होगा तो सब जगह पीस हो जाएगा, एकदम शांति हो जाएगी, तो कोरोना को मिल गया, तो मारिया कोरोना, राइट। मारिया कोरोना हैज गॉट इट फॉर पीस, दिस लेडी हैज गॉट इट फॉर पीस। और ये जो बंदी है, शी इज द ऑपोजिशन लीडर इन वेनेजुला, और लास्ट ईयर उसको यूरोपियन पार्लियामेंट में भी अवार्ड दिया, इनके मारिया कोरिनो उनके पार्टनर को, राइट। तो मारिया कोरेना हैज गॉट दिस अवार्ड दिस ईयर। तो करुणा से याद करना, ठीक है। तो करुणा, एंड दिस लास्ट ईयर शी गॉट द सुखरोव प्राइज। In fact, I think we have not covered this here, but Sukhorov Prize is also important because it's given by EU. EU becomes important because Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa are going to be the chief guests for the Republic Day. I mean, they have accepted it, but abhi confirmed nahi hua hai, but yes, they have been invited as the chief guests for the Republic Day function next year. So EU becomes important. So EU Parliament ho gaya. So Roberta Metsola, she is the person who's heading the EU Parliament. 720 seats होती हैं EU Parliament में, whatever. So EU as a process becomes important. और ये लास्ट ईयर इन्हीं को प्राइज दिया गया था। इस साल किसको दिया गया है, उनका नाम तुम देख लेना। एक का नाम है अंग्रेज और एक का नाम है जिया, एम जिया, और एक का नाम है अंग्रेज समथिंग समथिंग। तो शी इज दैट वन पर्सन इज फ्रॉम बेलारूस, जर्नलिस्ट, जहां पे डिक्टेटर अलेक्जेंडर लुकाशेंको, एंड द अदर पर्सन एम जिया इज फ्रॉम जॉर्जिया, राइट। ठीक है, तो ये याद रखना। इस साल का सुखरोव प्राइज विच इज गिवन बाय द यूरोपियन पार्लियामेंट, राइट, which is given by European Parliament. So European Parliament, by the way, is based at Strasbourg, which is in France. It is also in Belgium, and the administrative office is in Luxembourg. And Roberto Metsola, who is from Malta, is the person who heads the European Parliament. ठीक है?
All right. The next important award this year is this month is the Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar. So it was announced this year only. So Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar 2025 has been given to Professor Jayant Vishnu, and he has been awarded this posthumously that he passed away. So under the Vigyan Puraskars, there are 4 basic categories that under which they give these awards. So you only need to remember the name for the Vigyan Ratna or the Rashtriya Vigyan Puraskar, which is given to Jayant Vishnu, and also the Vigyan Team Award that is given to Team Aroma under CSIR. Alright, तो बस ये दोनों के नाम याद रखना है। बाकी 8 scientists have been selected for Vigyan Shri Award, and under Vigyan Yuva category 14 young scientists have been given. Alright, so again totally add it up, 14 plus 8, 22 plus 1, 23, and then 1 team award, 24 laureates this year, right? So it is given across 13 science-related fields under 4 categories. Vigyan Ratna for lifetime achievement recognition, Vigyan Shri distinguished contributions, Vigyan Yuva Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar for scientists below 45, and Vigyan Team for exceptional collaborative work. Alright, it is conferred by Ministry of Science and Technology, awarded by the President in the President's House in Alright, that is all. Then we had another award this year, which was IUCN Kenton Miller Award. The award is important this year because this is for the first time any Indian recipient has been given this particular award. Alright, so Dr. Sonali Ghosh, who was the field director of the Kaziranga National Park in Assam, has been, and Tiger Reserve from Assam, has been the first recipient of IUCN Kenton Miller program award given in 2025. So it has been named after Kenton R. Miller, who was the pioneer conservationist and former IUCN Director General, provided by IUCN World Commission on Protected Areas. It was launched in 1998. Eligibility kya hai? It is open to protected area managers. Protected area in the sense, the protected area, environmental protected area, like a wildlife sanctuary, etc. Researchers, educators across all forms of governance. So, Dr. Sonali Ghosh is a protected area manager. Alright. Preference given to candidates without prior international awards. and includes $5,000 grants, a global citation, and funded attendance at the IUCN World Congress. Alright? Okay. Then comes.
So guys, just ये अभी इस साल जो IUCN कांग्रेस हुआ था, this was in Dubai. You can just check that. It was in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, one of these places. IUCN Congress, and so you should know it was, I think, the 10th annual Congress, 10th Congress of IUCN. IUCN was set up in the year 1948, and the headquarters of IUCN is in Gland, Switzerland. इसी Gland में रामसर का भी headquarters है. So IUCN,
Abu Dhabi.
Okay, this time the meeting was in Abu Dhabi, where this prize went to this Indian Dr. Sonali Ghosh, right? And the other person who's got this award, there are two people who's got this award. One is from India, and the other person is from Ecuador. Okay, and her name याद करने का बहुत easy तरीका है Rock Q. ठीक है, उनका नाम है Rock Q. So we have Dr. Sonali Ghosh, and the other person is Rock Q, who's from Ecuador, right? So IUCN क्या करता है? Basically, it gives you the categorization. What is the categorization? Extinct, one, extinct and wild, फिर होता है critically endangered, फिर होता है endangered, फिर होता है vulnerable, फिर होता है near threatened, और फिर होता है least concern, and then data insufficient वाला, मतलब data not available वाला. So these are the various categories. तो ऐसे ही होता है IUCN का red list जो colorization देता है, जिसका headquarters कैम्ब्रिज में है. ठीक है, तो एक IUCN है और एक IUCN का रेड लिस्ट है जो कलर कोडिंग देता है, जिसका हेडक्वार्टर्स कैम्ब्रिज में. ठीक है, तो ये तुम्हारा हो गया केंटर मिलर अवार्ड IUCN का, ये इंपॉर्टेंट है. दूसरा स्क्रो प्राइज तो मैंने आपको मेंशन किया, अंग्रेज एंड एनजीआर. ठीक है, which is one is from Belarus and the other one is from Georgia. And we have done Vigyan Ratan Award, na? So the Vigyan Ratan, you said, na, last year it was given for the first time. So last time this award went to ISRO, the team award, and this time it has gone to CSIR, Aroma. ठीक है, Aroma Smell. ठीक है, तो CSIR को इस साल ये अवार्ड मिला है. अच्छा हाँ, एक अवार्ड में मिस कर रहे थे हम लोग, तो मैं उस अवार्ड के बारे में I want you to do a little research on this award, which is UNEP का Champions of the Earth Award. ठीक है, UNEP का Champions of the Year Award. और UNEP एस्टैब्लिश कब हुआ था? UNEP पहला एनवायरमेंट का समिट हुआ था, which was in 1972 in Stockholm. तो UNEP का चैंपियंस ऑफ द अवार्ड है. इस साल दो अवार्ड्स UNEP के आए हैं. ये लास्ट ईयर के लिए दिए गए हैं, 2024 के लिए. एक गया लाइफ टाइम अचीवमेंट अवार्ड, और आई डोंट नो इफ यू नो दिस गाय, बट हिज नेम इज माधव गाडगिल. He has worked extensively on the conservation around the Western Ghats. तो एक हो गया माधव गाडगिल, जिनको लाइफ टाइम अचीवमेंट अवार्ड मिला था. ये जनवरी का न्यूज है. और अभी चैंपियंस ऑफ द अर्थ यंग वाले में यूथ प्रोग्राम्स, मतलब अंडर 30 को दिया जाता है, उसमें जानवी मोदी हैज गॉट दिस अवार्ड. जानवी मोदी, एक बार नाम चेक कर लेना, जानवी मोदी, जे मोदी. ठीक है, सुरभि मोदी टीचर थी, तो मोदी वहां से आ गया, जानवी मोदी, तो मोदी. ठीक है, तो मोदी हैज गॉट दिस अवार्ड, जानवी मोदी. किसके लिए मिला है? बैनूफी लेदर. तो बैनूफी क्या है? बनाना लीव से या बनाना के वेस्ट से लेदर प्रोड्यूस करना. तो बैनूफी लेदर के लिए इसको अवार्ड मिला है. चैंपियंस ऑफ द अर्थ इंडिया से अभी केवल 4 लोग को मिला है. कौन कौन है ये? वन इज नरेंद्र मोदी, 2018. He got it for International Solar Alliance के initiative के लिए. The second person I've just mentioned, Madhav Gadgil. The third person is Janvi Modi. And one more person is, I think she got it in 2022. Her name is Punima Devi Burman. She got it for Hargila, which is Stoke, जो असम में होता है, उसकी कंजर्वेशन के लिए. वो critically endangered से now she has got it to vulnerable category. तो चैंपियंस ऑफ द अर्थ अवार्ड पूर्णिमा देवी बर्मन को भी मिल चुका है. ठीक है, तो ये हो. बस डिफेंस.
Okay, now complete the last section today is the defense. All right. So there have been 2-3 exercises that India participated in this year, this month. So one is exercise Samudra Shakti. So this year it was the 5th edition. So only the name of the number of the edition is important, and between which two countries. So it is between India and Indonesia. Visakhapatnam में हुआ था. the place is not so important. India and Indonesia is important. Bilateral है, मतलब बस दोनों ही countries के बीच में होता है. समुद्र शक्ति initiated in 2018 and basically strengthens India's Act East policy. Other exercises that we have with India and Indonesia, with Indonesia is Garud Shakti, and one is India Indonesia Pact. ठीक है. अच्छा, इसके अलावा शक्ति से related we also have Shakti exercise with France. All right. So Shakti is army exercise with France. Then we have one Garud Shakti. Garud is a bird which flies, so it is an air force exercise with France. And then we have Varun, which national India's water god mythologically. So Varun is naval exercise that we have with France. All right. So Shakti से काफी सारे हैं. I think one Shakti is with that is Dharm Guardian with Japan. All right. That is all with respect to Shakti. एक और Shakti नेपाल के साथ भी है. नहीं, that is Surya Kiran acrobatic. All right.
अच्छा, just I want to ask you this question. ये जो मलक्का स्ट्रेट है, ये किसको कनेक्ट करता है? आप ऑप्शंस में उसमें लिखिए जरा चैट बॉक्स में. It is almost 960 kilometers long and it is between the Malay Peninsula and Indonesian Peninsula. ठीक है? हाँ, ये कितने मैंने बता दिया. ये किसको कनेक्ट करता है? कौन से वाटर बॉडीज को? ये मैं पूछ रहा हूँ. It connects with all water bodies. ठीक है, तो it is a choke point. तो बताओ किसने लिखा?
South China and Andaman.
अंडमान कैसे आता है?
Andaman Sea territory.
ठीक है, तो बेसिकली साउथ चाइना सी से बे ऑफ बंगाल को कनेक्ट कर रहा है. ठीक है, अंडमान सी अगर तुमने कहा तो गिव यू दैट, बट यस, तो साउथ चाइना सी से लेकर के 960 किलोमीटर के एक्चुअली बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट चोक पॉइंट हो जाता है. और राइट एट द टॉप ऑफ जहां पे वो एंड कर रहा है, वहीं पे इंडिया ने अपना अभी एक 13 पोर्ट बना रहा है जिसका नाम क्या है? गैलेक्टिक बे. राइट, जहां पे लेदरबैक टर्टल्स का कंजर्वेशन के इश्यूज हो रहे हैं, बिकॉज वहां पे जब पोर्ट बनेगा तो ये एंडेंजर्ड हो जाएंगे. गैलेक्टिक बे, इट इज राइट एट द mouth of the the Great Nicobar Islands.
Alright.
इंडोनेशिया का कैपिटल है जकार्ता और इंडोनेशिया की एक सेकंड, वो न्यू संकारा बाद में होने वाला है, बट इंडोनेशिया में ही एशियान का हेडक्वार्टर्स है 1967 में, और एशियन वील कवर इट इन द नेक्स्ट वन, वो बैंकॉक डिक्लेरेशन से बना.
Alright. Then we have JAMEX, which is between India and Japan, and it was established in 2014. इसके अलावा India and Japan के साथ we also have Dharm Guardian. Alright.
And we have Jamata.
And Jamata. Jamata इसी साल start हुई है, and Jamata is not any military sort of exercise. It is a coast guard exercise. Alright.
Okay. Japan में what is the name of the new prime minister?
Which we will be covering in the next session.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's fine then. We'll be covering. So you just put that in the comment box. It is a currency. उनके नाम में currency है country का जो हमारी neighbor है. And she's the first woman prime minister of that country.
Yes. Okay, then exercise Ocean Sky. This is the exercise that sir was talking about in the beginning. So it is a multinational air combat exercise. This time it was hosted by Spain from October 20th to 31, and it is a multinational exercise. मतलब a lot of countries participated, and around 50 countries participated this time. India also participated, and all these aircrafts were sent from India to participate in this particular exercise.
ठीक है. अच्छा, एक चीज ध्यान देना, ये एक्सरसाइज भी है स्पेन में. स्पेन वही कंट्री है जहाँ पे यूएन टूरिज्म का हेडक्वार्टर्स है. कहाँ? मैड्रिड में. और दूसरी बात याद रखो, स्पेन ही अभी नेटो का जो मीटिंग हुआ था, 76 मीटिंग हुआ था नेटो का. नेटो वाज फॉर्म्ड ऑन द 4th of April 1949. ठीक है. और उसका जो 76 मीटिंग इस साल हुआ था, तो उन्होंने डिफेंस बजट अपना बढ़ा दिया. राइट, तो अगले 10 साल में, इट इज 10 years or 5 years, I think it is 10 years, they have to increase their defense budget from 2% to 5%. ठीक है, 2% to 5%. तो 32 कंट्रीज हैं. लास्ट कंट्री जो ज्वाइन की वो स्वीडन है, उसके पहले फिनलैंड है, उसके पहले नॉर्थ मैसेडोनिया है. 12 फाउंडिंग मेंबर्स इसके थे. बट एक बार फाउंडिंग मेंबर्स भी चेक करो कितने थे अनन्या ऑफ नेटो. 2% से बजट 5%. खाली एक कंट्री ने मना किया, खाली एक कंट्री ने मना किया है कि हम अपना डिफेंस बजट जो है 2% से 5% नहीं बढ़ाएंगे, और इस कंट्री का नाम है स्पेन. स्पेन इज द ओनली कंट्री दैट इज डिसाइडेड नॉट टू बी पार्ट ऑफ, आई थिंक 6 फाउंडिंग मेंबर्स होंगे. नेटो के देखो कितने मेंबर्स आ रहे हैं शुरू में. 12 भी आ रहा है ना, ठीक है. 12 फाउंडिंग मेंबर्स से नेटो के, तो ये इतना भी इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है, बट ओशंस का याद रखना. एंड स्पेन इज द ओनली कंट्री दैट हैज डिसाइडेड नॉट टू increase the defense. Mark Rutte is from Netherlands, former Prime Minister of Netherlands is heading it.
Correct. Then we have exercise Austra Hill. The name itself suggests that it is between Australia and India. This was the fourth edition this time. And that is all for with respect to this. Just one more thing.
Military exercise.
It is a military exercise, and just keep a little bit of Quad in mind. Read a little bit of Quad, because Quad has this one exercise which is known as the Malabar exercise. ठीक है, तो पहले Quad exercise नहीं थी. It was between India, Japan, and US. Then Australia was included for the past 1 or 2 years. So now it is informally, the Malabar exercise is informally considered as a Quad exercise. ठीक है, तो Quad is a multilateral grouping between these 4 countries: US, Japan, Australia, and India. And I think it was for the first time ideated in 2004, and then it was formally established in 2007.
और Lateral Security Dialogue, और ये इनिशिएटिव था जापान के उस समय के प्राइम मिनिस्टर का शिंजो एबे. इनफैक्ट शिंजो एबे इज द लॉन्गेस्ट सर्विंग प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ जापान. ही वाज assassinated last year. 8 years he has served as a prime minister.
Okay. And then the last topic for today is Saksham Counter Unmanned Aerial Threat Grid System. Achha, this is not a very important topic from CLAT perspective. Mostly for ALET that you all can keep in mind. Important बस इसलिए है क्योंकि इंडिया का पहला है, which India has undertaken and is going to establish, is going to construct and formally establish it. And this Saksham initiative is an anti-drone mechanism. Anti-drone mechanism in the sense कि अभी in the post Pahalgam terror attack, when we undertook Operation Sindoor, so mostly the attacks were undertaken through drones and unmanned aerial vehicles, जिनको intercept करना थोड़ा difficult हो गया था. तो उसके लिए they have undertaken Saksham. Correct?
Yeah, all done. So now, Anand, we go there. Now let's have a rapid fire. You ask questions and we will answer. कुछ भी पूछना है for the month of October, please ask. Yeah. So anything that you have in mind? Otherwise, how do you like the setting?
Any questions from today's session? Anything otherwise from October that you want to ask? No, please ask.
The feedback in the comment box.
Yes.
So that for the next session, because we have a session day after tomorrow, so we will incorporate that. What else you want?
Anything else that you want us to cover in the next session? Any topic? So please let us know. Yes, the important days for October will be covered in the next class.
But Motamoti, I've given you the important days. Work around it. 2nd of October, 8th of October, 15th of October, 16th of October, and 24th of October. These are the most important days. And 31st of October, National Unity Day. इसी के अराउंड तुम्हें काम करना. 15th of October also.
Yes, Gaza-Israel settlement we will do in the next class. Gaza-Israel settlement, it was to be broken the next one week. But yes, we will be talking about the Gaza peace settlement also. The countries which participated and several.
So in the last lab, we are going to be covering the Israel-Palestine conflict, and even this would be covered in it.
The last lab so means that the sessions that we take for 1 hour on YouTube. Alright, so one of the topics will be Israel-Palestine division for you all also. Although a recorded video is there on the LMS, but you people have just given up on the LMS, so we will be doing it for the YouTube session also.
So we have done one session on Nobel Prize. Yesterday, Anya ma'am took it on UNESCO. So ऐसे इसका भी Israel-Palestine cover करना है हम लोग को, which I think is very important for this year, as well as Russia-Ukraine war.
Okay, one of you are saying for Tigers. So Tigers also I will take up as a 1 hour YouTube session for you all. Yeah, I think one day I had taken this up for you all in the prime time also, but कर देंगे. ठीक है? Is US government shutdown important, sir?
US government?
Shutdown.
No, it is not.
No, it is not important. You only need to remember the tariffs that have been imposed on India and nothing other than that. Afghanistan some foreign ministers' visit to India is important.
Yes, you can look at it. अच्छा, अफगानिस्तान के बाद आई वखान बॉर्डर. वखान कॉरिडोर is important because वखान कॉरिडोर क्या है? जो हम लोग का POK वाला पार्ट है, वो 106 किलोमीटर्स का डूरेंट लाइन. वहां पे तजाकिस्तान में there is an air base that we have just recently left, right? Tajikistan में we have one more air base there, but one air base which is in Tajikistan. You see, Afghanistan shares a boundary with Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, here, Turkmenistan, of course Pakistan, and तो तजाकिस्तान में हम लोग ने अपना एक एयरबेस डाला था. अब उसका एंड हो गया. उस एयरबेस का नाम तुम एक बार चेक कर सकते हो. We have just Avni airbase, something like that. We have just left that airbase. It was a very strategic airbase for us. Wakhan border. Yeah. And even Afghanistan को हमने कवर भी कर लिया है. वो डूरेंट लाइन बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट हो जाता है 24.
Up in the international session on 7th. Okay.
Yeah.
ISA conference is also important. That is an international topic covered.
So ISA very important. इसको हम कवर करेंगे. तो एक कॉन्फ्रेंस जो ISA का हुआ है, ये हुआ है कहाँ पे? दिल्ली में हुआ है. इसका हेडक्वार्टर्स ISA का कहाँ पे? गुरुग्राम में है. आशीष खन्ना is the director of it, and 107 country to ratify it is 107 country to ratify it is Malta. ठीक है? ये माल्टा से ही वो रॉबर्टो मेट्सोला है जो यूरोपियन पार्लियामेंट की प्रेसिडेंट है. ठीक है? और 123वां कंट्री टू सिग्नेटरी जो ISA का बना है वो बन गया है ये आर्मीनिया.
इंडिया तालिबान मीटिंग
मैंने बता दिया इंपॉर्टेंट है. हम लोग इसको कवर कर लेंगे. इनफैक्ट जब हम लोग अफगानिस्तान को देख रहे हैं तो वी शुड आल्सो लुक एट द कॉरिडोर दैट वी आर डेवलपिंग थ्रू द चाबहार पोर्ट व्हिच इज द नॉर्थ साउथ कॉरिडोर. ठीक है? सो फ्रॉम द दीनदयाल पोर्ट एंड द जवाहर पोर्ट इट गोस टू चाबहार से इट गोस टू अफगानिस्तान एंड द अदर सेंट्रल एशियन कंट्रीज. एनीथिंग एल्स? प्लीज लुक एट द फीडबैक. we are this is important for us so that we know what is to be done, any corrections to be done for the next session.